So, hello! Today we're going to talk about the concept of Tauri being front-end agnostic. Not everyone seems to quite grasp what we mean by Tauri being front-end agnostic, and I really just want to take a moment to discuss that. What front-end agnostic means is that Tauri gives you a web view, and Tauri has no opinion about what frontend you use. That does not mean, however, that Tauri is backend agnostic. So for example, let's say you want to set up something like Nuxt or Svelte. You can use something like Svelte Kit if you want, but Tauri is front-end agnostic, not back-end agnostic. That means that if you have a framework that uses SSR, server-side rendering, that means that they have a custom backend that they use, which means that something like SvelteKit has to adapt their backend to how Tauri wants it. Tauri wants you to give us a folder with some form of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, something that you could have sent up to something like Apache or Nginx in order to statically host your website. If your front-end framework can't deliver that, then the issue isn't that Tauri isn't front-end agnostic anymore. What it means is that your framework isn't back-end agnostic. So basically, when a framework is backend agnostic, in web development at least, it basically means you can plug it into any backend and it will be able to serve it. Within web development, what that means is you serve a folder in what's called static hosting so that the backend can take care of just serving the files. They're pre-made by the front-end framework. And in that sense, Tauri is front-end agnostic, not back-end agnostic. So if you decide to use, like some people I've seen in the Discord have wanted to do, use Flask, for example, which is a Python library, technically more of a REST API than an actual front-end framework, but some people use it for front-end as well. And the bad news there is that Tauri is front-end agnostic, not back-end agnostic. And if you're using Flask, you're going for a full-on SSR solution, which means that Flask is a poor choice for a front-end with Tauri. If you can, however, make your Flask application back-end agnostic, then boom, Tauri will accept a folder with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So if you get your Flask application to statically render something, so you have an SPA/SSG app, that's fine. We accept that. We are front-end agnostic. Tauri is not back-end agnostic. Besides that, I wanted to go over the fact that some people want to use their own custom backend anyway, by, for example, sidecarring or adding things with resources and stuff. Look, within programming, generally speaking, if it works, it's not stupid. If it works, it's okay. But do not sidecar things like Node.js and Python into your application with the purposes of making it your own SSR framework happen when it's a bad idea. Do not use it for something like a local host server as a REST API. And there are two reasons for this. If you want to use SSR, or rather if you're sidecarring in order to use SSR, if you want your Flask framework really badly and are ignoring what I'm saying right now, the problem with that is that you are in charge of things like the security of that localhost server. When Tauri is in charge of it, we ensure that it's served in a proper, secure way. When you're taking care of it yourself, for example, do you know how to set up self-signed certificates? Do you know how to communicate front-end to back-end in a secure manner? Which is why, generally speaking, when someone asks me, can I use Flask or something else? I'll say no. Well, technically yes, but no. Because I'm not going to trust you as a random developer to know all of these random security features that you need to be aware of in order to serve your backend securely. It's a deep rabbit hole of issues if you decide to sidecar something with the purposes of doing SSR or doing a small API because you refuse to use Rust or you refuse to learn a new front-end language, or you can't figure out how to do SPA or SSG for your framework. If you start doing that, Tauri is no longer as secure an option for your application as we offer. So, really bad idea. Please do not do it. If you are going to sidecar something, because I know some of you just thought, what is sidecaring for then? What's it there for? Well, it's for things like your CLI tools. Let's say you were to use ImageMagick and you need to have their CLI available and you can't trust that to be on the target platform. Well, then you can sidecar it. Or if you need FFmpeg, that's also fine. Sidecar it. There's a lot of things you can sidecar into an application that isn't related to strictly the backend or the front end. It can be backend related, but it just can't be a replacement for your Rust backend. So that's a little bit about what front-end agnostic means. Tauri is front-end agnostic, not back-end agnostic. Do not sidecar things. It's insecure and performs much, much worse than what you might think. I saw a post the other day about someone having made a Next.js API routing available for Tauri. That is such a bad idea for so many reasons, not in the least the fact that, as I said, the security aspect. Do you know how to set up self-signed certificates and things of that nature in order to serve that API securely? If not, then you're opening up your application for pretty severe security issues. But yeah, that's a bit about the theory of how this works. And I figured I would also show you an example of how to set up any framework by doing primarily just a vanilla JS template, essentially remaking it. And I can also recommend you look at the Nuxt video I made, which also goes into how to set up Nuxt, which we don't have a template for, but it's a really simple process. It's the same kind of process I've shown now with vanilla JS. So let's just get into it. So here we have our basic folder. We're in a dev container currently, because that's usually how I roll. And we are going to create a simple pnpm init command, or run a pnpm init in order to get a package JSON. Then we're going to run enpm add at Tauri /CLI. To the script section, we're going to add Tauri. Now we can run pnpm Tauri init We're going to call it Frontend Agnostic. Frontend Agnostic. Our web server is just going to be ../dist. ../dist. We're not going to have a dev command. We're not going to have a build command. And there you go. Now you have a source Tauri set up. We're going to create the dist folder. In here, we're creating index.html, HTML, body, h1, hello, from Tauri. As you can see, the dist folder is what Tauri would expect in the end of any front-end framework you set up. So if you set up any framework, you should have a dist folder of some kind with a pre-made application that doesn't require any server at all, because Tauri will take care of serving the assets. Your front-end framework needs to be backend agnostic, because you're plugging it into Tauri. And this should really be it. If I just run npm Tauri dev now, the worst part of this is Rust Analyzer. God damn, do I hate Rust Analyzer. There we go, thank you. It's gonna take a little moment to get everything set up. Thankfully, we're using the mold linker to speed up this process, but it's still going to take a second. And there we go. Now we have a Tauri app. Hello from Tauri. And that is really it. If you're setting up any framework you have, this is all you need. And just to really emphasize that this really is all you need, I'm just gonna quickly set up the Nuxt template again, just because I can, because it's so quick and easy. If we take this command, we get my app. We're gonna remove dist, and we're gonna keep the source Tauri folder, because then I won't have to rebuild everything from scratch. We're gonna remove package.json. We're gonna copy that over into the parent, remove that folder. Now we have a basic Nuxt project, which we don't have a template for. Just gonna run pnpm I. npm dev. And here you can see we're getting a Nuxt website, and there you go. And all we need in order to get this Nuxt template to run with Tauri is SSR false. Any framework you use, disable SSR features, because that is a custom backend. Tauri is not backend agnostic, it's frontend agnostic. So you have to adapt your frontend framework to be backend. agnostic so that Tauri can take over the backend aspect of your application. SSR false, and if we now run pnpm generate, we can actually go into Tauri config and just before build command would be pnpm generate, pnpm dev. Our dev path would be http localhost 3000, and our dist dir will still be dist pnpm Tauri dev. Alright, just because I forgot, there's two things we have to fix. First off, Tauri, and pnpm add Tauri app/CLI. pnpm Tauri dev, and this shouldn't take many seconds at all. And there we go. And now you have a Nuxt app setup. And this is the power of Tauri's front-end agnostic approach. As long as you're using web technologies, there is no limit to what front-end you can use. The only limit you have is that it has to be back-end agnostic. If you want to set up Flask, don't do it. You will have a bad time. It is annoying to set up, and don't even set up your own localhost API for your project, because unless you're a security expert, you're not going to know all of the things that we have had to fix in Tauri in order to get it to run securely. It's just a bad idea. Okay, don't do it. Front-end agnostic, not back-end agnostic. Hope we're clear on this now, what that means. And anyway, that's roughly all I had to show you today. Yeah, I think that should be very clear now for everyone what front-end agnostic means. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!